Well, hello, boa noite. What an exciting night this is. Well, I think it will be. I mean, we'll see, won't we? This is, of course, our US election coverage on the Portugal show from Expats Portugal with me, Carl Munson. And we are going to have I was going to say a leisurely show. It may get very excitable at points. We're going to have an open-ended show, is what I mean to say. We are going to stay open as long as we feel it useful and necessary to cover the information, the data, the news that's coming in from America, especially in relation to how life might be for people in the rest of the world as a result of this election. And also, obviously, how life will be in Portugal, and especially drilling down even further still for those Americans who want to come to Portugal. So all of those, I guess it's like a Venn diagram of interest, isn't it? You know, I want your thoughts on who you think is going to win tonight. Sorry, who's going to win in this next day of voting in America. I'm struggling with the time zones. You know I do, but you get the gist. Who will win the US election? How will that be for America, for one thing? How will that be for Americans who want to come to Portugal? How will it be for the rest of the world, for the land of the free and the brave? How's it going to look, and how's the impact going to be on the global community? And obviously, you know, this is the Portugal show. This is expatsportugal.com. We want to know, if you're already here in Portugal, how you think it will change life in Portugal, if at all. For some people, it may not change their lives at all, really. Like Laura, who we spoke to last night. Who lives up in the hills of Goiás. I don't want to be caricaturing her, but for the likes of those people who are living a very community-based life that may not be subject to the full force of globalization, if I put it like that, their life may be affected in some ways, but not in very many obvious ways, perhaps. Your thoughts on that? And obviously, the big issue for us tonight, we talked to a lot of Americans who want to come here, who want to come and live in Portugal. How will that process be affected? That's the real nitty gritty for us. I'm hoping, thank you, Henry, for your comment. For all of those Irish people who've made their home in the United States, 'tis a fine show, so it is. Double check with your wife. The comments coming in already. This is fantastic. This is what we want tonight. What I don't really want to do is to be one of those pundits that's looking at Fox News and CNN or any on Twitter to tell you what's going on through the eyes and interpretations and meanings of other people. I want to hear from you personally. I want to hear your thoughts. Xander being a great example here, who's in Texas. I want to hear from the people who are in America, from the people who are in Portugal, whose lives, well, let me know how you think your life is going to be affected. So double check with your wife. My astrologer friend says most astrologers saying Trump will win, but won't finish his term. That's got a chilling ring to it for sure. So comments very welcome in the first person. What do you think? How do you think it will affect life on planet Earth, given the reach and the impression that the USA has on the rest of the world? You know, this as my co-host in the Expat Man Cave, Frank says, who may well join us tonight, and I'm hoping some people will join us on screen tonight with your views. Feel free, come in on the comments or join me on screen. Seriously, I can send you a link and you can be talking to me on screen. But what was I saying? Distracted. You know how I have these loops of distraction. I just distracted myself. But yeah, that's the gist of it is I want your personal views. Too much of the news is opinions about opinions, isn't it? What we're able to do, what we've proven, I think, with the Good Morning Portugal show, and to some extent, it's fairly new, but to some extent with the Portugal show, we're hearing about first-hand experience. So that's what's important to me tonight, and we'll stay here for as long as you want us to be here, for us to mull this over as the news comes in, as the information comes in. We do have to rely on strangers and third parties for the actual information, of course, about the election, and we put our faith and trust in them, don't we? And their veracity and their faithfulness to the job and their steadfastness and good character to deliver the results. And then it's up to us, I think, to give our first-hand interpretation of what we think the effect might be. We have Lauren and Andrew here as well from North Carolina. Boa noite, Andrew and Lauren here thinking Biden, but we'll see. And that's where everybody is at the moment, right? You'll have heard of my fellow Brit, Piers Morgan. His tweet, sorry to mention him really, but his tweet said, Biden should win, Trump might, but who knows, anything could happen. That's top punditry. That covers all the bases, doesn't it? But let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what you think the impact will be, and let me know how that might affect your plans coming in to Portugal. Boa noite a todos from North Carolina. We have a lot of people in North Carolina. Why is that? Is there some sort of ley line going through North Carolina that attracts people? What do you call yourselves there? North Carolinians? Forgive me if I made a complete hash of that. But you people from North Carolina, lots of you overrepresented in terms of, the whole population of America here in the work that we do on Good Morning Portugal and the Portugal Show and Expats Portugal. Interesting. I don't know why that would be. Maybe you'll have a better idea of that than me. Hello, Carl. Sorry, I had to walk the dog, but I am here and ready. Okay. Let me copy the link to the comments here, and you'll be able to join me by clicking on this link if you wish to. Look at this, four households from North Carolina, and Julienne, North Carolina here too. Lauren telling me North Carolinians. Okay, North Carolina. Is that how you pronounce it? North Carolinians or North Carolinians? I'm going to go with North Carolinians because I think that sounds better, but I don't want to change how you see yourselves. But of the 4 Americans here tonight, you're all from North Carolina. Amazing. 5. Oh, and 1 from Texas, Xander, of course, who checked in early. And Hendrik Lamar tuning in from the Emerald Isle as well. He's a lovely chap, so he is. Hello from Thailand. My feeling is perhaps there is some electoral mix-up with late ballots, so maybe Biden may lead, but Trump will stay. The thing is, Trump is staying anyway, isn't he, until the 20th of January? Like him or loathe him, that's how it works, right? You will have in America, you will have the President Trump until January because there is a transition period, isn't there? So we shall see. But this is being billed as an acrimonious battle, really, isn't it? And we have a similar. I can really relate to it as somebody from the UK, where it seems like half will be angry with the other half, as we saw with Brexit. And it seems that that's how it's lining up in the United States as well. Like half the country will be angry with the other half, who have victory on their hands, and the marginalized losers, as it were, will feel bitter and angry. And it won't be, or not all of them, but that will be one of the flavors, of course, that we'll be dealing with. And that's not a pretty thing. I mean, this is a far cry from the age of democracy, or am I being romantic, where it's like may the best man win? And where I use the word man on purpose, obviously, because there hasn't been a female president yet of the United States. May the best man win, and they shake hands afterwards and everything's fine and they get on with the job. It is not going to be like that, let's face it, is it? Laura, my fantastic guest from last night, saying hola from Goish. Hope you enjoyed that conversation with Laura. I know many did. Soaring away in numbers on YouTube, it is. Thanks again, Laura. Anne says, if one wins, we come to Portugal in 2 years. If the other wins, it will be in 4 years. Hi from Maryland, says Doreen Race. Hi. So we are getting some other states represented tonight. And North Carolina is just a pit stop before heading to the next place. Fantastic. And I have before we have Charles waiting for us in the green room, which is fantastic. I do have a wonderful comment to share with you, which I think it sort of sets the tone really for for our conversation tonight. This is from Joe. It was an early comment that I put up on the screen. This is from Joe, and it says, I have to be upfront with you, and I'm serious, says Joe. If Biden wins, Terry and I are leaving the country in the next year. Let me repeat that. If Trump wins, Terry and I are leaving the country in the next year. I thought that was great and sums up the sentiments of lots of American viewers and listeners for us, no doubt, tonight. And I do like that idea as well, Eric, on YouTube. North Carolina is just a pit stop before heading to the next place. I'm a little bit concerned. We should have Donna Jacqueline with us tonight. I'm hoping she's okay, but she may be just taking her time and joining us in a little while. Oh, she's here now. She's here now. But let me just welcome Charles to the screen. First of all, how are you, Charles? Sorry, we're both unmuting your mic. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. How are you, Carl?
Yeah, well, I'm well and a tad excited by, mixed feelings, mixed emotions. But obviously, at the start of the show, I'm wondering, who's going to tune in, what people are going to say. We were in communication this morning. You were in the queue to vote an hour before the polling station opened up.
Yeah, it's been a long day already. I got up at 5 a.m. and wanted to be in the queue at least an hour early. And there were a handful of people, probably 20, 30 people already ahead of us in line.
Really?
And then 19 minutes after that, we walked out, and there were probably 200 people in line. So I'm glad we got there early, but I'm a little tired.
I can believe it. You're not had a snooze then? You're not had a European style siesta today?
No, not in America.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you would be seen as lazy, wouldn't you, for doing something like that?
I'd be fired.
You can look forward to that happening when you come to Europe.
Yes.
Fantastic habit you can get into. Jacqueline, I do see you there, but I'm not sure if we've got vision for you yet. But no hurry, no panic. We'll get you on in due course. Charles, I was saying earlier on, the important thing for the show tonight is to get real personal observation, testimony, opinion in the first person from people, because news is a long way from news these days, isn't it? It's so much opinion, other people's opinions about other people's opinions. I need to find out from you, what you think's going on, and to give us a little bit of a picture, take the political temperature. You sent me pictures of the National Guard are in position in places, shops are boarded up. What's that all about?
Yeah, they kind of jumped on things early, probably a few days ago. Businesses, even in our local area in downtown Charleston, the streets that had some riots back in May, they've gone ahead and boarded up their businesses early, as well as a lot of other major cities like New York and Washington, D.C. The nicer shops and other office buildings have already put up boarding and made sure that they can't be broken into again, hopefully. And some of the National Guard has been put into place in certain areas just in preparation, I guess, for potential violence. I know that they're putting up some kind of new fencing around the White House that's supposedly unscalable in lieu of violence. So they're taking precautions ahead of time. It's a little crazy.
Is that, I have to ask, because it's easy to make assumptions about the state of the world, the political temperature at the moment. Is that normal for an American election, presidential election?
No, I've never seen it before. I've never seen that kind of violence. Just around racial division and other things that are going on in the country. But stores being boarded up and the National Guard being called out for an election, no.
Okay, fair enough. I just thought I'd check. So the stakes are high, emotions are high. What else can you tell us about what's going on in America right now from your particular view?
Just trying to gauge what's going on, trying to gather in information as much as I can from different sources. Not all conservative, not all Democrat, or just trying to feel out what's going on. And of course, everybody's touting their guy and pushing, and you hear all kinds of things. You read things, about things happening in Philadelphia where some pollsters who go in to watch the polls were official pollsters just to make sure that everything goes like it should. They've been kept out of some of the areas in Philadelphia, so they're already having a hard time in some areas. I've heard of some mechanical failures or computer failures in certain voting areas. One in Georgia, and another one in Philly as well. So it's kind of typical for those failures to happen. I'm sure they'll rectify them and people will get to vote. I mean, they've got a long ways to go yet, but you hear grumblings from both sides.
So you mentioned pollsters there. Pollsters as in people encouraging people to vote and vote a certain way, or finding out how people have voted?
They're more there to watch the polls to make sure everything kind of goes straight.
Okay.
And there's no funny business.
Right. Okay.
So they're kind of independent people that go out there. They get certified as a poll watcher.
Oh, okay.
And go into the facilities to make sure that things are being conducted as they should be.
Yeah,
But
I guess
there's no campaigning going on outside the polling facility because that's against the law.
Who is it?
You can't put up signs or anything outside the polling area as you're entering, favoring one candidate or another. You can't hand out material. That's all illegal in the United States to do.
Oh, okay. And I understand it's illegal as well for TV, radio, media people to talk about who should win, although that's not enforced, because that's really that's what's happening, isn't it?
No, I haven't heard anything yet as far as a news agency saying who they're pulling for, but it's pretty obvious here in the States who the 7 big media people are. They're pulling for. It's pretty much lopsided.
Yeah, but it's really obvious to me who they support. But I suppose the thing they work carefully not to say it outright. Is that how it works?
Yeah, it's kind of said under breath, with a smile on their face.
Yes. Okay. Well, forgive me for my Britishness about this and my Europeanness about this. I mean, that's part of what this show is about tonight, to help Europeans understand what's going on and to find out what the impact's going to be. And we'll be here for as long as necessary, as far as I'm concerned. So yes, Charles, if you do drop off, I'll just make a loud noise at this end. But feel free to have a siesta. You won't get fired from this job. Hello from Savannah. That's Georgia, isn't it? GA in the USA, from Susan. And when I said, "Is that normal?" there's a big no coming from Susan, and like underlining that with "totally not normal." I'm sorry, but I thought I'd ask, rather than, because everything's being sort of massaged towards this emotional event, isn't it? It's like, this is all terrible. This is the worst thing ever. And I just wanted to bring that perspective. Well, maybe it's a normal thing, but I found out in no uncertain terms that it's not normal. Thank you for that, Susan. Wow, says Laura, rather dramatic. The National Guard in the USA are not quite like our GNR here. Absolutely, it's a bit like, you can make the comparison with football. I think if you compare an American footballer with a European footballer, the state of dress is similar. I think of the respective police departments. Eric J, Department of Justice has deployed poll watchers in certain areas. Okay, thanks for that, Eric. Jared's joined us. Jared Russell, hello from Reno, Nevada. So a few wonderful American friends joining us tonight. That's fantastic. And please, give your comments. I assure you, what I'm about here is the holding a space. I don't like that phrase, but that is what's happening tonight, for respectful dialogue. That's absent in many places. I think Charles will attest to how I try and do that. I endeavor to do that. Speak freely, and I'll make sure that we keep this as respectful as possible, whilst realizing this is a very emotional situation. I mean, that is the hallmark of this election. It's very emotional and it's not very rational, is it?
You're very good. You're very diplomatic. So I'm at ease here. I don't feel like I'm at war here.
Okay. Our GNR are always involved in the community. In America, they're mostly called in very tense situations, says Laura. And Julianne says, never seen National Guard boarded up businesses on election day in the 50 years I've been alive. Amazing. So we're getting into the area of elder perspective. Let's see if we can hear Jacqueline. I'm bringing you to the screen, Jacqueline. Can we hear you? Oh, there we go. Fantastic. How lovely to see you.
Hello. I'm having technical difficulties, as they might say.
Okay.
In my computer keeps switching itself off because it's got troubles, it says, and needs to sort them out. Well, I thought my computer is actually behaving like the rest of the world at the moment.
That's very possible. I think Jacqueline and Charles, you know of each other. So
I have watched. Hello, Jacqueline. Nice to meet you.
Lovely to hear from somebody who's in the midst of it, so to speak.
I think you're the perfect piece for tonight to keep things at a nice, calm, and friendly level.
Well, I hope so. I hope my frustration with my computer doesn't end up me having what they call a blue fit, losing control altogether. I don't like technology very much anyway. When it goes wrong, it seems to be very threatening. So that's also happening. I did hear a bit of what you said about the voting stations and things, that maybe they are also having technical difficulties in places. So,
yeah, that's not uncommon. They're still computers after all.
That's right.
Look at this. The voice of reason has entered the room. So no pressure tonight, Donna Jacqueline.
Okay. I don't know about that. I probably have some quite strong personal views about the election, but it's very, very difficult. I think it's a difficult time for anybody to be rational at the moment, because we're already being whipped up into a state of fear, and unusual things are happening. And I should imagine the population in America is very, very worried about their future. So.
Yeah, and we can't take that lightly, can we? I mean, it is very personal and very emotional. And whilst I have made jokes, and we all have, I think, on one level, we acknowledge that this is a really difficult time for our American brothers and sisters, and basically, like, hope and pray for peace would be one part of the conversation tonight. I think it's really important.
I do too. I actually have been praying for the elections. I've always been interested in what happens in America. I have a lot of friends there, and it's a sort of country that I feel God's put on my heart to pray for anyway, and possibly because it does tend to affect the whole world. Where America goes, we seem to follow in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's a whole other discussion, isn't it? How did that happen?
Yes.
I love it.
It happened in a very short period of time, too.
Everything has happened very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And, one can't help but, I think I talked a little bit last week about the last war, how 1 minute everything seems to be okay, and the next minute everything's just erupting all around us. And it probably hasn't happened quickly, but it's been building up for some time. And I think it's very, very hard for us to get at the truth of what's going on. And that makes it even worse, because people start developing emotional opinions, and which are changing from 1 minute to the other. So I think that's a lot of, if you are really upset and emotional, you can be swayed very easily to be a bit stupid.
That's a pretty good analysis, I think. We have questions coming in. Actually, before I go there, so yes, Donna, Jacqueline, I think that's a pretty good description. The voice of reason has entered the room. Just to explain to everybody, you normally join with us at 10 o'clock Lisbon time on a Tuesday, and the focus of our show normally on a Tuesday is Portuguese positive news. And whilst this, the pandemic has just worsened people's lives really in so many different ways, that Portuguese positive news has shifted really from reporting on news stories that show Portugal in a positive light and give us reasons to be cheerful, as it were, more into sort of pastoral care and how we can nurture the best of ourselves and each other. And we've been talking about vision, haven't we? We're talking about what we can do in terms of self-care and our mental health. So that part of your job, I think, tonight, as the voice of reason and as the grandmother of our community and our expat elder, is to hold that, if you would, in terms of how we can care for each other, even though we've got differences of opinion, how we can have a long-term view rather than be stuck in the immediate and explosive emotions that you just talked about. So is that okay to give you that job tonight?
Yes, I can attempt to do that job. I don't know how qualified I am to do it.
I think you are.
I think really we all need encouragement to follow what we believe, but to try to do it peaceably, because government needs our support, needs our prayers, needs our reasoned opinions, I expect, but it also needs it needs to be there, because anarchy is just terrifying. I'm much more frightened of anarchy, I think, than I would be of anything else that could happen within the government. And we need to learn how to protest through the right channels. And so I did hear some very good news out of America today, from that point of view, where some people are feeling that they are being unfairly treated in the shutdowns and so on. And so I know of one big company and one huge biblical organisation and one other that are actually taking the government to court for the measures that they're putting in. But they're also making it very clear by showing that they are following all the procedures that have been asked of them from point of view of having the hygiene things in places and what's the word for it, the social distancing and so on and so forth. So they're not ignoring the coronavirus, because we seem to get people who just sort of say, well, I blow it, I'm going to do what I like anyway, which does cause a big problem, and that's a bit irresponsible, perhaps. But there are still at least avenues open to us to protest through our governments, because the governments are there in our societies where we don't have dictatorships. Our governments are there to serve us, to represent us, and we have the right to question whether they are exceeding powers that have been given to them. So, and maybe people have just got lazy. But I found that very encouraging that there were people doing that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's right. It's a rightful challenge, as you say, through the appropriate system, and hopefully it will allow people. And this is an American sentiment, spirit, sensibility, isn't it? To be able to choose reasonably in the area, in the environment, in the community that they live in, and that's been a real threat, I think, isn't it? Is this imposition of rules and laws and ideas that don't fit with the locality. This is what happens with massive centralized government, and that to me is part of the failure, I think, of the if I may say so in front of all you Americans, and it's not just America, but the failure of the American government system is that it's top down from a remote figure that seems to be the personification of the ultimate power over millions of people, hundreds of millions of people. And how can that possibly be? I think it needs to be decentralized. I think it needs to go to local level for people to be able to feel a sense of them influencing their own lives. And this is why I think the emotion rises, because people feel so helpless in their own communities, because decisions are being made about their lives by people they don't even know. And worse still, they don't feel like they're being heard when they vote to remove those people. And I think that accounts for quite a lot of the frustration. And that's not an American problem, is it? That's a problem in most so-called democracies that we have. But I think it's really personified by America at the moment. So right on, Jacqueline, Donna Jacqueline, I think that's great that this sort of lawful challenge is being made, maybe to give the rulers, so-called, a little bit of something to think about.
Yes. And, we're not going around burning people's shops or doing other acts that are real terrorists, But the whole problem with the human race really is we tend to like everybody to make the decisions for us and then get upset when they make the wrong ones. Indeed. So I'm all for personal responsibility. And I think we talked about this a little bit last time, that we should at least keep thinking for ourselves and to, I think Charles, he said something about media, it's really, I just want to stop for a minute and say how much I admire you for stay awake and carry on through this if you've been, because it's not easy, is it? But yes, we just don't just accept everything that the media says, that we actually remember that we can research things quite a lot ourselves. And it is becoming more and more difficult because so many perhaps disagreements with government policy that used to be aired on sites that you could reach from Google and Facebook and all these other things are actually being shut down. So it's becoming quite difficult. So that's another line I think that we need to do. But you can do research for ourselves. It's not impossible.
No.
Indeed. Amen to that. Although it might seem like it at the moment with the way Silicon Valley is governing information, but we'll see. I hear some sites were shut down today, and Mrs. M, my wife, is a keen observer of these things. Like, coincidence? I think not. But your views on that very welcome, everybody. Charles is here helping us with a view on what's actually going on the ground in the States. You're representing the whole of your country for us tonight, Charles. Others may join, of course. But can you explain to us how it works? 200 is the race to 270, is it? So there's 270. Are they the colleges? And is it the first past the halfway mark that wins?
Correct. That's the electoral college, the electoral votes. That's the number of votes gathered by each state if you win a state. And 270 is what you need to win. And then, of course, we also have the popular vote here. So hopefully, I'm hoping anyway that Trump will get both the popular vote and the electoral vote. The electoral vote is the most important one. The popular vote, says that a lot of people voted for you. They wanted you. And that's kind of what happened 4 years ago when Hillary Clinton took the popular vote, but Donald Trump took the electoral vote and won because he had enough electoral votes. And that's really what makes the difference.
And that was the upset 4 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
So interestingly, there are two red shirts here on the screen. There is a blue shirt that I'm wearing, not necessarily reflect. I mean, Charles has nailed his colours to the mast there, as you just heard. We don't have to, but if for the purposes of balance, and if you are a Biden supporter or other, somebody was talking to me earlier on today, other options are available when you go in the polling station, right? It's not just red or blue, is it?
No, but you tend to see people kind of flying their colors, whether they're wearing a red shirt or a red pair of pants, or they encourage people not to wear anything that says, the MAGA label or Biden. It's kind of discouraged that you really can't wear that kind of stuff into the polling areas. That's also against the law. It's illegal. But flying your color, whether it's a shirt or a pant or something, you see a lot of people doing that. But it's not mandatory.
Okay, but some people observe it, some people don't. I'm wondering now. I mean, I don't know what authority we broadcast under here, but thank you for not wearing your MAGA caps, just in case.
No, you don't want to be identified, really.
Question? No, that's right, and that's an interesting point, Charles, isn't it? Because it was the same with Brexit. A lot of people were shy about their opinions to poll. When you used the word pollsters before, I thought you meant the opinion poll type people. And I know that people are shy to talk about voting for Trump in the States, for some obvious reasons, and some others, that it's obviously their absolute personal right to do so. But this is what throws the polls, isn't it? It's what happened with Brexit, and it's what happened 4 years ago. Is that people aren't honest for whatever reason, or don't give the answer that the polling people want to hear, or whatever, and it completely throws things. And that's why it's completely in the air, isn't it, at the moment, until the last minute here, really, until things are counted.
Yeah, all the different polls we see here in the States, they're so out of line. Some polls have Trump down by 17 points, which is ludicrous. And then eventually, as you get closer and closer to the day, oh, he's only really a point or two away. So they try on their own to skew the polls so that it'll prohibit from people from actually going out and voting, thinking, oh, he's down by 17. Why would I go stand in 2 hours in a line in the cold? We're not going to win anyway.
Yes.
So that's kind of the purpose.
That's the weaponization of polling, isn't it? It's incredible.
Yes.
Everything gets weaponized in the end, doesn't it? Question from a Brit. A question from a fellow Brit to an American, and this is Jay Walker from, which is an offence, obviously, in the United States. I think in many places, jaywalking still. Radio Cardiff is in Wales. What's the red and the blue stand for? Over here, the red seems to be associated with the left and socialism, and blue for the right. It's the other way around over there, right? I think we can clear that up. Yes, it is.
Yeah, yes, it is. It's the other way around here.
Okay. All right, that's good to know. And Xander's saying in Texas, yes, it switched. And I think that was referring to the emotional versus rational approach to politics. Arguably, years ago, there was no emotion in politics. The days I referred to where people shook hands at the end because they respected the vote, and then they tried again in 5 years' time in the UK, and it wasn't too acrimonious or emotional, and probably too little emotion. And I think that's what Xander's referring to, and it's switched. It's completely the other way around now, isn't it? It's like almost all emotion, and we'll be rational when we absolutely have to, when the time comes. Joe responding. Joe, thank you for your comment earlier on. Really, really like that. I'm guessing that's Terry in the picture there. Red would be Republican, blue Democrat. So there we go. Sorted that out. Another comment, a tongue-in-cheek one, I think, from Manchester in the UK. Is it me, or does anybody else think this American election is a bit like a Christmas pantomime? It's a bit like Cinderella with the two ugly sisters just trying to make the senior role. I think that's a fair thing to say. Hoping for the best, there's Victoria Benson, and part of the formula for hoping for the best is having a cocktail right now. Well done, Victoria. Mary Hauser, hello from Surrey, BC in Canada. I just pray for a peaceful solution and ending. We're with you on that, Mary. Whatever our views, I think. I like to think, yeah, we're a broad church here. I use that term advisedly with what we do with expatsportugal.com, with Good Morning Portugal and the Portugal Show. Yeah, in the end, peace rules, peace and love. Without wanting to sound like a terrible hippie, but tonight may not be the night for that in the immediate. Bonoit from Edgar Ferreira, who I'm sure will have other things to say as well. Yes, including a line of question marks. I'm not sure what that's referring to, Edgar, but it's a good comment nonetheless. I think it's very appropriate. It sums up the suspense. It's been a problem ever since they introduced the classroom monitor. Laura talking about, I think, the political system reflecting the school days and the classroom monitor. Yeah, not many of us have recovered from that, especially not getting that job. I was very surprised that a Black Lives Matter hat was allowed in my voting place, says Xander. I mean, Charles, what would happen? I mean, do the officials in the election office station say, "Can you take that off, please"? What happens?
No, nobody's going near that one. That's
okay.
Nope.
All right.
No, but that's kind of carte blanche. No one will touch that subject.
Okay, even in the voting station.
Yeah, no, definitely not. If you wore it, I mean, you could have a shirt on, and no one's gonna say anything to you about it. But if you wore a MAGA shirt, a Biden shirt, you're gonna get spoken to. Step out of line to go change or something. But Black Lives Matter, it's touching.
And is that a memo? Do you think from the organisers of the election? A memo comes through like, don't challenge anybody with a BLM. I was going to call it merchandise, but you know what I mean. Any sort of a BLM reference, just don't go there.
I think it's kind of an unspoken thing. There's a town in North Carolina that was flying BLM flags pretty much around the polling places and throughout town. They had come up and asked them to remove them during the election day, and they said no. Okay. They wouldn't be coming down.
Wow. Okay. Jay's response to the red and blue thing, it's like driving on the left. They switched it, referring to you guys. Makes sense to me for USA though. Red being the emotional rage and passionate, bombastic lunacy versus the cold blue facts of science, logic, and reason. Interesting, Jay. I don't know if the Democrats could. From my view, it is a personal opinion. Could be described as cold, factual, and no one's cold, factual, scientific, logical, and reasonable at the moment, are they? In American politics, I don't think.
I don't think so.
BLM is not a political party. Oh, there you go. So Chris is here. Chris may join us on screen. You're very welcome, Chris, to balance things up on the screen here. BLM is not a political party or candidate, so it's not electioneering and is allowed. Okay, interesting. I don't know what you make of that, Charles. And then Allah from Andrew Scarborough, who I think is in. Where are you, Andrew? Remind me. Up in Yorkshire. Or are you the Australian Andrew? I can't do. Forgive me, I can't remember. So bringing things back to Portugal, and of course, so many of our American friends here wanting to come to Portugal, not allowed to travel at the moment. The question I asked on the forum at expatsportugal.com, and I'll put a link up for it so that the conversation can continue about that over there. But if Trump is returned to office, it occurred to me that perhaps travel for America, bear with me on this, it's not about who I want to win, it's about what might happen for Americans who want to come to Portugal. Is it likely that if Trump gets in, he'll be more open to opening borders? Or if Biden gets in, it's going to make it more difficult? And my personal observation with this is that most of the people who want to come to Portugal do seem to be Biden supporters. You do seem to be in a bit of a minority there, Charles. So the people who want Biden to win would be delayed longer in coming to Portugal if Biden does win, and less so if Trump wins. But then again, you all want to come to Portugal anyway, so in some ways it's academic.
Yeah, either way.
I'd love to hear your comments on that, and we can continue that conversation. What do you make of that, Charles?
So I think from what I've seen and heard that, Biden would probably try to appear as the COVID savior and shut things down pretty tightly. But yeah, from that perspective, I think Trump would be the guy to open up the borders. He's, eager to get states open up and get people back to school, back to work, get the economy going. So yeah, I think that people who are, pulling for Biden and want to go to Portugal, you're probably going to be waiting a lot longer than you would for Trump. But then again, that depends on what Portugal says and if they allow Americans in or not.
Of course. It's not just about Trump saying we're open, is it?
No. It's not a Masters of the Universe kind of thing.
As much as he would like to think that, perhaps, it's not necessarily going to be the case. Yes, he will. He wants to open up the country, says Jeffrey. Oh, this is Biden, I think. Biden needs to save us, okay? And there, I think, is the projection thing you might have been referring to, Jacqueline, about how it is that we project our hopes and dreams onto politicians and then criticize them when it doesn't all work out. I don't know if you want to say any more about that Jacqueline, and taking more responsibility. There is a lot of that, isn't there? We are incredible, us human beings, and yet we do this funny thing of putting all our hopes and dreams on these fantasy figures. It is what they seem like to me at the top, so-called top, and then we get disappointed when it doesn't all come together.
Well, I think it's in it goes back to a basic in human nature that we all need something to worship, because and so in some ways we can project that onto government. So that's one side of it, but it's and we see that being acted out, don't we, in pop stars and all those sorts of things, people that are all supposed to be heroes, and they're all living supposedly the lives that we love to live. But the actual responsibility, I mean, I think going back to what I said, there are things that we can do, no matter who's in, with which affect our internal environment, which is, we can't get away from that wherever we go and whatever politicians are in power. So I tend to concentrate on thinking about those sort of things. I'm wearing red tonight, not because I even did it thoughtfully, but I actually am prepared to say I'm a Trump supporter, not necessarily knowing everything about the man, but he's not a politician, basically. And therefore, I think he does have genuine interest, apart from his own, in economy, and wants to see America being successful. And I think that's quite a good value to have. And also, although his tweeting at times drives me nuts, listen to it. I think, you know, and if he's showing signs of being sort of sympathetic towards Christianity, I think he needs to sort of with his tweets, but because they give a false impression of who he is. But I go back to what I said again, we need to do our own research. And I've got like 6 pages of all the things that Trump has actually done while he's been in office, which anybody can find these information out, you know. And to me, it's much more important what people do than what they say.
Okay.
In my own faith, it becomes absolutely ludicrous to be a speaker about the word of God and then not do it.
Yeah. Okay. And he does have a major personality trait of saying a lot, doesn't he? Which then I think if he has achievements, which you appear to have a sheet of his achievements, the way he articulates and communicates might cast a shadow over his achievements that are there because of the way he conducts himself. I suspect there are people who will have interesting responses to our 2 Trump supporters on the screen here. The stage is open, guys. You're very welcome to join. But if you prefer to speak from the comments, that's absolutely fine as well. And people are. Doreen Race says, MAGA militiamen with guns and huge automatic weapons and full regalia have been intimidating voters in poll lines and trying to prevent them from reaching the polls. And this is, I guess, the extremism. Charles, you're not sure about that, but this is the extremism that we're seeing.
I'd like to see the video. I'd like to see the live video on that one.
It's certainly an image that's believable, isn't it? But you might be doubting the veracity of that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I think Trump will open borders, says Lauren. However, I think we won't be able to get into Portugal because of the restrictions in the EU. I think you said that, Charles.
Yeah.
And it's a sentiment Xander agrees with. I think other countries won't let Americans in if Trump wins due to his poor handling of the virus. We're Germany. Susan Allen said, but Biden will open up. Yes, the world won't let us in with good reason. Which is such bad news for the Americans who want to come to Portugal. I mean, what is the timescale for that, do you think? Susan, pretty certain that Trump will start World War III. In information terms, he may have already done that in terms of, the weaponizing of how things work at that sort of combative level of politics and the emotional war. That's in progress as far as I can see. Completely agree with this. Not what sure that is, but I think you're leaning towards Biden, Lauren. There, forgive me if you're not, but agreeing with some of the sort of bluer sentiments. Back to work, regardless of how bad the contagion rates get, says Chris. It will be paid in human lives and suffering. And then here's a little bit of relief from this immediate conversation. What is the political climate like in Portugal? Jacqueline and I will attempt to answer that in just a moment, Eric. And it's a great question and a nice diversion for me as I begin to feel the heat of this debate. Who's Trump? Says Susan. I'm not sure. Trump only cares about himself, her sentiment as well. Chris saying, I thought that most of the restrictions on travel to other countries is set by the destination country. Absolutely, Chris. The USA is locked out of them because of our infection rates. I think that's true. Got that right, says Jeffrey. Jeffrey talking to you, JMB. And I'm thinking as well, if Donald Trump could hear you, he might think you're a member of the royal family, Jacqueline, because you have that air of regality. Is that the right word? And I can imagine Donald Trump saying, even the royal family want me to win in England, if he heard you talking. Julian saying, thank you, Donna Jacqueline, voice of reason indeed. However, Susan says, he's done nothing. He's a liar. No. I think so we get a bit of crosstalk in the in every sense of the word in the comments. Actions over words. That's what's being agreed with here, Jacqueline. I think Jacqueline made a very good point there about Trump. By their fruits ye shall know them. Isn't that right, Jacqueline?
That's what the good book says.
Indeed. Hold on. Thank you for this flow of comments. It's really great to hear from you, and that's what this is about. Also, actually, if somebody does want to call in, some of my guests have said to me, "I look terrible at 10 o'clock at night. Can we do it audio only?" So yes, you can. You can call in if you want to talk to us here. Use WhatsApp, country code 351-913-590-303. I'll leave that on there, and I'm opening up to the whole world on WhatsApp. We'll see what happens there. I'm losing track of so many comments. Thank you. He's done nothing. He's a liar. No actions over words. Here we go. Here's people in pickup trucks with guns and Trump flags surrounding my mum on the highway, like they did to the Biden-Harris bust. And yeah, my mum is 80. That is unfortunate and unforgivable. Should that have happened, and I'll love to her if that was a difficult. I imagine it was a difficult experience for her. Or grope, harass, deride women, and the aim to take away women's rights. He needs to go, says Victoria. I think a good topic for a show would be to cover the different parties in Portugal. I'm thinking that now, Chris, as well. And Xander saying, how many pages can we get on what he's undone? That's a good point, isn't it? That might be a document you might not be able to lift off the table there, Jacqueline.
No, you can't. It's not always easy to find the truth in these days. I do know that, but it doesn't mean to say that we all give up looking. That's all I really mean with that. You know, we can look. I mean, there is a wonderful phrase in the Bible, know the truth and the truth will set you free. And maybe the truth sets us free from our own stupidity at times and our own just emotional reactions, you know, because I want to know when people slam each other and throw mud at each other, excuse me, what they're basing their opinions on.
Yes.
And if it isn't what people do, I don't know how we can avoid situations that we're in now, where people are in a fight verbally.
Indeed. And another thing that comes to mind there is this whole thing of when you're pointing one finger, three are pointing back.
Yes.
And, what about our inner Trump as well? I mean, it's easy to project, isn't it, onto other people? But this thing about taking responsibility, I'm not saying we're Trumps by any means or accusing anybody of being that. But what I'm saying is that each of us, has an inner stuff, and none of us is without. We're going well with the Bible quotes. Let he who is without sin cast the first stone, I suppose, is what I'm groping for here. And I shouldn't have used that word in relation to Trump. I see what error I've made there as well. What I'm reaching for is what I meant to have said. Victoria Benson, we have children in cages separated from their parents. We have left the Paris Climate Accord. With over 230,000 dead from coronavirus, the only place we are number one is in COVID deaths. So Victoria obviously feels strongly. We hear you, Victoria. Eugene from Ireland. None of the God's Emperor's achievements have been covered by the obviously left-wing media. I am sure Antifa is handing out flowers and candy to people wanting to vote. Well, there's a nice incendiary little message from the Emerald Isle, the normally easygoing Emerald Isle. Thank you, Eugene. Jacqueline, Joe Biden is a much better choice. He's a good man with a good heart. And Charles has been joined.
Yes, that's my dog.
What's his name or her name?
That's Sunshine.
Oh, fantastic. A little bit of sunshine on the show. That's wonderful. Jacqueline, are you okay? Oh, she's okay. Okay, good. Benoit, all from Douglas, I think from Wales tonight, just joining in with the conversation this evening. So interesting so far. Charles, have you got your TV on to see what's happening?
I do.
Oh, and what's the news from the American media, such as you're seeing it at the moment? And this applies to anybody else who's watching their television. Let us know what's happening in
Right
America?
now, it's just local. It's local news. It's would be the local NBC channel. They're not really showing any numbers. Just kind of going back and forth, some banter, and showing different scenes, different polling stations. But it'll be a long ways before we hear any kind of numbers.
Okay, tell me, how long? When are the first states or colleges likely to reveal the numbers?
Typically, on a normal election, probably 9, 10 o'clock at night, you'll start hearing some numbers. But what they're saying about this election is, everything's going to be a little delayed. It could be a couple of days.
Well, so the tension will be stretched, basically.
Yeah, they're looking to make sure every vote is counted even after the election has passed.
Wow. Okay. And the polls. So in your what time is it for you now? Are you about 5 o'clock?
It's 6 o'clock, just about 6.
6 in the evening there, and your polling stations are closed. Oh, first polls close in 4 minutes, which is exciting.
7 o'clock.
And what time do they normally shut in the evening?
I think here they close at 7 p.m. 7
Really?
p.m.
That early?
Yeah, it is a little early.
Wow, that's
they opened at 7 a.m. So I mean,
yeah, but I'm thinking like in America, the 24-hour culture. Even in England, the polling stations stay up until 10 o'clock at night, I think, before people have to go home and eat fish and chips and drink tea.
Yeah, I think everyone's had plenty of time. Early voting has been pretty big, so they've afforded plenty of time for people to get out and get their vote in.
Yeah, Jacqueline, how are you doing? Did you want to add something at this point?
No, I think what's happening is so linked to the coronavirus and the way people are seeing that and the different opinions about what we should do about it, that it's very difficult to separate the two at the moment, because I'm looking at some of the comments that people have made. It's very much linked to what policy might come forth from regarding that, rather than anything else. And the bigger crisis for any nation is going to be financial, and they're linked together so much that it's probably very difficult for any of us to know whether we're preserving lives or destroying them, because with the difficulty with corona it's not so much now the number of people that are dying, and again we don't know necessarily whether the statistics are being manipulated or not by politicians. We don't know those things, or by media, but we also know that the suicide rate and the human despair has gone up by all the things that drive people to despair, not being able to feed their families or not being able to live their lives. It's not just about whether you can try to.
I think, Doug, we've got you through to the studio. Can you stand by for just a minute? Maybe mute your phone up, and we'll get your comment in just a moment. Sorry,
No
not you, Jacqueline. I was just talking to Doug there because I haven't got a complicated switchboard or a producer or an assistant or anything like that. So we've got a call coming in from Doug in just a moment. But yes, Jacqueline, that is an interesting point, and I think it goes back to what you were talking about last week: is an utter lack of vision. In America, the immediate job is to unite the country. How on earth, American friends tuning in tonight, is that going to happen? How will the injured other half be able to recover from their hurt? And how will they relate to their new president and see them as a person with vision and lead them out of these terrible circumstances you've just described there, Jacqueline? I think we better speak to Doug, haven't we? Because I can hear he's I don't know if he's making a sandwich or something there. Doug, what's happening with you?
How are you? Can you hear me, first of all?
Loud and clear. We can hear him, can't we, folks?
Yes, I can hear.
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear. What is it you wanted to say, Doug?
I was just going to say to you that I reckon we need to be waiting for our first. Yeah, hang on a minute. I've got a lot of echo on this now. I think I'm going to have to come back to you.
We can hear you fine.
Mhm.
He's banging his microphone. Can you hear me at the back? All right, Doug. Yeah, he's gone again. We'll pick him up in a little while. Yeah, how on earth is there going to be a unifying vision? How can a country so divided and so apparently hateful of the other side at the moment recover from that when whoever wins is in office? They've got a real job on their hands, haven't they, to unite? Or are the other half who are bitter and disappointed just going to sit out the next 4 years and not play? Because that's what it feels like it could happen. Is that like, well, we're just not going to cooperate. We'll sit it out. We'll take it's happened. We didn't want this to happen, and this could be either side talking with the way things are at the moment. We didn't want this result. We're not going to participate. These are terrible times, and we're just going to wait another 4 years. I mean, who or what can come into this mix right now? Not just in America, but in the UK and other countries as well. Unite people and move towards a bigger, more positive vision.
Well,
That's an important question.
The question, isn't it?
Yeah, it is the question.
I think you kind of saw that in the last 4 years. I mean, the Democrats really said we're not going to play nice with Trump for the last 4 years, and didn't help him in any cause.
I think that comes back, doesn't it, to something you said earlier about British politics. You know, at one time, people would shake hands at the end of it, and then they would cooperate for what was best for the country. But for some reason or other, all over the world, we seem to be losing that. And I'm not supporting any sort of conspiracy theories, but I do know that there are, the countries that are now offering to hand out money to people don't have it. And we've seen that in England, that, although we've got an absolutely fantastic health system and things, it's been overloaded for years and years and years and years. And it's also taken personal responsibility away from people about their health, and it's put them in a position where they will take medication of all sorts. But probably sometimes kills them faster than some diseases do, and it's very, very complicated. And of course, I worked in health departments for many, many years, and one of my jobs was helping people get off medication that was unnecessary or was actually all clashing with each other. And as part of the society that we live in, this instant society, we want everything now, so we're not prepared again to take responsibility for our own health or anything else. So, and then when we can't do anything, we get to mudsling at everybody who's probably doing whatever they do for their own reasons. I think we just don't know anymore. It's so confusing.
Indeed. More comments coming in. Apparently, the polling stations shut at 6. We were able to vote early here in North Carolina, says Angeline, and I went days ago, so I wouldn't be accosted at the polling site. Goodness gracious. Chris, our friend Chris from the Expat Man Cave. Victoria, we're number 1 in several things. Sorry to hide you for a minute, Jacqueline. The percentage of our adult population that is incarcerated, which makes us the least free country by definition, the rates of fatal lawnmower accidents, good heavens, and 3, military spending, which is higher than the next 24 countries combined. I think Donald Trump's doing something to minimize that, isn't he? I don't know. 23 of which are allies. Wow, that's American exceptionalism. It sure is. If we can't admit, Chris continues, that we are not number 1, we can never get there, because you don't need to change if you're already 100% awesome. That's my personal philosophy too, Chris. Wow. Fatal lawnmower accidents. Got to have the perfectly manicured lawn would be the reason for that, suggests Zander. They won't. I think that's. Oh, so they won't was meant to be the comment there. I think that's people working together. That's how it's been for the last 4 years, says Anne. I don't see it getting better regardless of the result. That's sad to hear, Anne. A record number of people voted in early voting. It will take a long time to count them. Both parties benefit from the country being divided. Just look at how it has driven turnout, indeed. In my humble opinion, the balance of power within the Senate may have more impact on the next 2 years than the presidency. You'll have to explain that a bit deeper, I think, for us outside of America and how that works, Eric. COVID numbers are reported by Johns Hopkins University, not politicians, says Victoria. And CEOs of companies are telling employees to stay at home because of potential demonstrations tomorrow that could turn violent. So there's all sorts going on behind the scenes, isn't there, at the moment that we don't know about, as well as the things that are being reported. And I think we've got Doug on the line again. Doug, are you there?
I think I am this time, Carl. How are you?
I'm very well, and just fascinated by what's unfolding in front of us on the world stage over in America. What's your view on it? You're calling from Wales, is that right?
I am indeed.
Yes. Good evening.
Now then, my understanding is Borada Nosta, actually. Buonite.
Nosta, forgive me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nosta, Buonite. I believe from what I've been looking and listening on the old tally box is that we're actually waiting until about 1 a.m. Our time for the first results to come in from Florida, which will be a pretty good indication of the way things are going for old Biden and Mr. Trump. So we wait with a bated breath, I believe.
I think you exposed your preference earlier on. What was that?
I think I'm leaning a little bit towards Mr. Trump. Biden's an unknown quantity as far as I'm concerned. So I think it's a case of better the devil you know at the moment.
Okay. I mean, this is it. This is where we've got, isn't it? The devil you know and the least worst. What does that say about our politics?
Yeah, I was just listening to your program the other night, and you were saying, well, you know, at the end of the day, one of your guests was asking the question, wasn't he? If you can you really put on your heart, hand on your heart, and say that either one of these guys truly represents what you actually want to see happening in the world? Well, I reckon he got it pretty good, didn't he?
He did, absolutely. And we can't, can we?
Not really. I mean, I think it was the same between Hillary and Trump the last time. It was a case of the least worst option, wasn't it?
Indeed. And I think that's where we are with world politics, quite frankly. When tiny minorities of people represent millions of other people who they don't know, who are basically numbers to them, this is what begins to happen. This is the picture that's emerging where true representation, local representation has pretty much disappeared in most countries in the world, I think, if it was ever there for some.
You're doing pretty good in Portugal, guys.
Well, we will get round to that. We will get round to the political scene here. My headline fear with that is that it's heading the same way as the rest of the world.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think it's going into neoliberal capitalism politics, and I think that's as what I'm beginning to understand is that people agree with that prognosis here in Portugal.
Well, I don my cap to your superior knowledge on that one.
Okay, I'll take it. Doug has an accent that sounds like Bane from the Batman movies. Nice to hear him finally. Is he a goodie or a baddie? Is Bane from the Batman movies? Do we know?
It depends if Chris Roberts is actually a Trump supporter or not. He's not. He's definitely not a Biden supporter. Then I'm a baddie, aren't I?
Indeed. Oh, Doug, anything else you want to say before we return to other comments and to Jacqueline and to Charles?
No, I'm willing to keep on listening into you and maybe interject at some point.
All right. Okay. Well, should we leave you there on the WhatsApp for a minute?
Why not?
Okay. Fantastic. I say put a libertarian office for 4 years and see what happens. I don't understand fully what that would mean, Xander, but I think I agree as well. He is the most awesome bad guy ever. That's what you are, Doug. Well, that's what you sound like. That's what you sound
Thank
like.
you.
Social media has enabled more people to be engaged in politics. However, I think it's a big reason for the rise in extremism and misleading information on all sides. Absolutely spot on, I think, with that sentiment, Jonathan Trollope. I mean, we were both talking about the good old days, weren't we, Jacqueline, of British politics, or so our romantic view, in nostalgic view, would have us believe. But there wasn't social media and gossip mags peering into the private lives of people. So we could believe that they were gods almost, couldn't we? And our projected view of them was kept holy and righteous.
Well, I think there's only one righteous government anyway, so that's.
Would you like to say more?
Yeah. Well, I think that anybody that knows me knows that already, but I believe God's plan is better than anybody else's, and that's basically because I believe that we were created and not just some horrible accident that happened. Although looking at us, you could imagine we were a horrible accident at times, the way we carry on. And just actually, grounding things back into the American elections again. I think people do show. Was it you, Charles? Who controls the Senate is probably the most important.
That was Eric J. Eric J. who said that. The balance of power within the Senate may have more impact on the next 2 years than the presidency.
What does Charles say about that?
Yeah, it goes a long way in helping to get bills passed, depending on how stacked you are on the House and the Senate.
So I mean, that's probably a way of looking at maybe what's been happening in the Senate for the last few years, which is just fighting. I mean, just mudslinging.
Yeah.
And they whoever it was mentioned it. They talked about that the Democratic Party have done nothing but oppose Donald Trump. Whether it was good, bad, or indifferent for the country, we don't know. They just opposed him because they oppose him, and that's not a very good situation to have in the country anyway. And
no, it's kind of sad that they hate Trump more than they love America.
It's not about what they do; it's about whether you like them or not, or maybe we didn't have the media and things, but people knew a lot about their politicians' personal life in the ones that were involved and did investigate their lives a lot. And I suppose you can tell something by that, but then people can also change, Thank God we can change, The grace of God we can change, otherwise we'd all be dead by now, I should think.
Yeah, there'd be a sorry day if that wasn't the case. Absolutely. They're another party option, the Libertarians. From what I know of, I mean, isn't America essentially libertarian? And then the new politics is an imposition on the libertarian spirit. I don't know if that's a controversial thing for me to say. Eugene, no way, me the power. I am totally trustworthy and cheap to hire. And Chris Roberts will vote for that. So yes, Eugene, your political career is safe in certain parts of this community. Horrible stuff. Yep, truly exceptional. I think that's another anti-Trump sentiment there from Victoria. Victoria, what about vision? What is the vision from the Democrat side? How can the country be unified? Do you think, Victoria? We're well aware of your misgivings about Donald Trump, and I'm not asking this question only of you, but I'm interested from your point of view how you can see resolution, forgiveness, how things can move on. How indeed, sorry to use the phrase, but how America can be made great again. What do you make of that? I know that's probably too emotional a phrase to use, but what do you see for the future? I would vote I would vote for me too, says Eugene, at least 3 or 4 times. He's straight out of the Trump school of politics, I think, Eugene McCrossan. Again, the Republicans did the same thing to Obama. What else can they do, says Chris. We oppose him because he wants to destroy the environment and so many other terrible things, says Susan. Again, for you, Susan, we totally get it. Your mistrust. Sorry, say that again, Charles.
She'd be what we call a never Trumper.
Okay, so there's nothing that can be said to redeem him. But then again, there is alternatively a bigger vision, possibly, in which a bright. I mean, we got to think of a brighter future here, haven't we? We can't keep going on in this polar way of undermining each other. It's not working. It really isn't working. I dislike Trump, says Marty P, because I care about America. He's a serial liar. There is a reason why foreign leaders laugh at him. I mean, the president of Portugal did a pretty good job in the handshake off. I don't know if you've seen it, the video of the two leaders meeting, the president of Portugal and the President Trump. When they met, they went in like alpha males at each other. And I think it's safe to say the Portuguese president won that one. I make no apologies for hating Trump. I am a never Trumper, as the phrase you've just mentioned there, Charles. He is pathetic. Okay, we get it. But, this is like the same sort of stuff, calling Joe Biden Sleepy Joe. How can we move on from this? How can we move on, guys? There will not be any resolution, says Chris. And I hate to hear this, Chris. I really do. Trump has already poisoned everyone against a result that would not put him back in power. But we can't, whatever your feelings about him, we can't have that as a final position, can we? And Sam says that handshake video was fabulous. Right, I'm aware we've gone past our hour that we usually do for the Portuguese Positive News. I don't want to rob you, Jacqueline, of your time with us and your influence on us. Same with you, Charles. I appreciate that you've been with us for an hour now, and I don't want to hold you up unnecessarily. And I'm hoping you'll come back again tomorrow night when we do really have something serious to talk about by tomorrow evening. Hopefully, maybe. We'll see. We are moving to Portugal, says Susan. That's the solution. Okay, the solution is to move away from that. And I think a lot of people are with you on that. I did promise. So Charles and Jacqueline, I know that, you know me, I'm an Olympic talker. I can carry on. I don't expect the same of either of you. So, send me a private chat or make your excuses absolutely fine. But I would love you to be here as well at the same time. Nice to see you guys. How's my friend Charles? It's just Frank is here. Does a Canadian want to join us for a Canadian point of view on the screen? You're more than welcome, Frank. Let me just get that link up. And same for anyone else. Anyone who's inspired and moved to join us on screen, please do so. Hopefully a bit more solution oriented. But, if you've got to let off steam as well. Here's your quick guide to government in politics. 4 main organs of Portuguese politics are the President of the Republic with the incredible handshake, the Parliament, the Council of Ministers, the government, and the judiciary. The President of the Republic is elected to a 5-year term, not the 4 years as you have in the States, by universal suffrage. Is also a commander-in-chief of the armed forces. Presidential powers include appointing the Prime Minister as advised by the Parliament, which elects the Prime Minister, and the Council of Ministers named by the Prime Minister. Some other major powers include dismissing the government. That's a hell of a responsibility. Dissolving the Parliament and declaring war or peace. That is what the President has at his disposal. The Parliament or Assembly of the Republic, the Assembleia da República in Portuguese, is a unicameral body composed of 230 deputies. It is elected by universal suffrage, the election systems that we are familiar with, according to a system of proportional representation to a multi-member constituencies. Deputies serve terms of 4 years. The Assembly of the Republic is the main legislative body. The President of the Parliament substitutes the President of the Republic in the event of his absence. Let me tell you a bit about the parties. The national and regional governments are dominated by 2 political parties here. So there you go. Same old, bipartisan, bipolar politics. The PS, the Partido Socialista, I'm sure that just the very word socialista strikes terror into many Americans, doesn't it? It's a bit different here in Europe. The Social Democratic and the PSD, the Partido Social Democrata, conservative. So conservatives and socialists, again, a pattern emerging. Within the Portuguese political culture, the PSD is described as the centre-right and the PS is described as centre-left. Other parties with seats in the parliament are the PCP, the Communists, again striking terror into American hearts and minds. It's a bit different here. PP, the Partido Popular, the Popular Party, BE, the Bloco de Esquerda, the Left Bloc, and PEV, the Partido Ecologista Os Verdes, the Ecologists. PCP, BE, and Os Verdes are left-wing, and the PP right-wing. And this is the latest news. As of 2005, as you say, Socrates is the prime minister. Sorry, that's not the latest news. The latest news I thought was coming there is that there is what is described as a far. This is why I think it's a familiar scene emerging in Portugal. Hopefully, a little further down the road than we have with that we see in America and Britain. But a far right party, or described as a far right party, Chega, have come onto the scene in the last couple of years. So that is the situation. To the person who wanted to know about the Portuguese situation, join the Facebook channel, Susan. I need the support, says Chris. And Xander, my solution: put a libertarian in the office. Gives both of the other parties time to sit back, lick their whims, pull their heads out of their backsides, and come to a compromise. I'm with you, Xander. That's the best proposition I've heard this evening. So thank you for that. And Charles has left us for now, and we'll be back tomorrow evening, which is great news, when we really have some results to consider tomorrow evening. And perhaps we should call it a day there, you and I, Jacqueline, or begin to draw it to a close, because it's always great when you have the mic, as it were, and can just give us a little bit of a view on things from your perspective as the grandmother of our community. How have you seen that debate tonight that we've had?
I like what you were doing, actually, which is trying to get people back to asking what their vision is, and rather than just be reactionary, because I do believe that we can get hopeless if we don't have anything to move towards. And speaking personally, with two sort of major difficulties that I've had to face in life, one was when I became disabled, which followed not immediately, but by slow degeneration after a very serious car crash. And the other was when my husband died almost 9 years ago now. And I was left with a completely different sort of life to the one I had been used to. But finding that I needed to have a vision of where I wanted to be. I mean, a lot of things, even just ordinary things like having projects of things to do in my house, or learning how to do a new skill, or any of those things, helped to move me and to come out of a mindset of oh poor me, and get into a mindset of thinking that I could be valuable and useful and all of those things. And that is about a vision. That is about keeping clearly in mind that we are able to accomplish a lot regardless of circumstances and what we want to accomplish. And with my home, I wanted to accomplish a place of beauty and peace that people could come to and find some little form of sanctuary, whether it was over a meal, or I've had people who come to my house because they can't sleep in their own. So they've actually said, can I come and sleep for a few days and recover? I mean, that may sound really silly, but it's a very good thing. And I love it when somebody benefits from what I can do, because it does make me feel useful. So I think, you really hit the nail on the head. We've got to have something to aim for. And in saying that, I also know that nearly all, somebody mentioned communism a little while ago, and communism has always started or developed by taking over the lives of people through finances or through whatever means they take it. And I think that could very easily happen in this situation, that we actually move into dictatorships, which would be much, much worse.
Mm.
So there's, we have to look at history, and if we can't learn from history, history is being deliberately altered now, and there are very few people left. For instance, when I talked about the war, people are left with not really knowing how it all got started and what happened.
Yeah.
So looking at us historically. But I suppose the only hope is to have hope that things can improve, and to take our hold of our own lives and see what we can do simply to make life better for somebody, anybody. Just help, being helpful towards people, which to me is love. That's what love is.
Yes.
Is practical regard for others, and being able to lay down your life for other people. So if we saw more of that, we'd have wonderful government.
Thank you. I mean, that's beautiful. That's wonderful, and I think it's what I want and need to hear. And I don't know. You kind of alluded to, how these things may seem sort of small scale or strange in some ways, but they're so profound and important, aren't they, to the people involved? And like charity beginning at home. These the grandest gestures often fall flat. And this attempt of ours to grasp politics at the largest scale is leading to all this bitterness and acrimony and mistrust and hatred, basically. And I really hear what people are saying. I'm not taking a view here, whatever people are saying in the comments, that that's just someone being emotional and they need to get over it, because I think the opposite view. I'm hearing all of them. I'm hearing all of these views. And my overwhelming sense of them is that is one of sort of empathy and sympathy for people who I really understand, feel these things very deeply. And my sort of secondary concern about that is how that overshadows what you've just talked about, how being consumed by such emotional, such strong feelings about politics then might diminish or undermine our actual practical capability in the very communities that we live in, or at home even. So whilst we're consumed by that anger and unrest that has been brought to us by our engagement with this sense of politics, because it's not really politics, is it? It's just like looking at the TV and being stimulated by other people's ideas and other people's interpretations. Comparing that to what we can achieve on a local and homely level, it strikes me that local and homely is just far more powerful than where we can really make a difference. And that all adds up in the end, I think.
I mean, I actually believe that the church in a way has also lost its way, because if it doesn't begin at home, where is it?
Yeah, indeed.
I mean, just where is it? If you can't be, if you're a wife beater or if you can't maintain a loving unit, that you really can't do anything outside of that. Yeah. So it really does begin at home. I'm not disallowing mistakes or the fact that people can actually change, but we can't change unless we know what we want to change into and what we are for. Again, it's like if you don't know what your purpose is in life, it's very hard to fulfill anything. Indeed. I think that's a fabulous note to conclude on, if that's okay with you. Absolutely. I need to go to sleep.
Well, Chris, we'll get to Chris's comment because it sort of sums it up beautifully. But Frank will be with us tomorrow when we have some results to look at. Regards to us both there from Frank. Thank you, Frank, the Canadian, who will have obviously an excellent perspective. Yes,
Yeah.
Donna Jacqueline, a goal of some description is very important. And sorry for your loss from Eugene over there in Ireland. Chris Roberts, thanks, Chris, for all your comments tonight and your contributions and your commitment to us. Yes, we often obsess with moving away from something. She's right. And I think that's referring to you. We need to find something to move towards instead. Great show all from Eric J. Thanks, Chris. And thanks to you, Eric J, for this great show all. Thanks to Charles for representing the red side. Brave man. He is. See you tomorrow. Cheers, Eric. See you tomorrow. And real change has to start with a leader with empathy, and Trump has none. Jacqueline, with all due respect, if you had those injuries with the health cuts that Trump is pushing for, you would be penniless and owing hundreds of thousands of medical costs. He admires and is striving to be a dictator. Also, apparently, it is easier for you to support him not being a person of color directly dealing with his racism, not condemning white supremacists, and inciting it and hate. Okay, so I guess still. I understand that, Dorian, really do. You know, I get it. I hear you're upset with Trump, and I still think it's true that we have to, in some way, if we can, move beyond and grasp a vision that can make what you feel there and what you think about Trump have something bigger that in which that would pale into insignificance. Because it's true that love conquers all, right? Even Donald Trump.
Exactly. And I don't think that it makes that much difference who's there if we lose that.
Yeah.
That's, we just need that. And on the actual fact, I have not had very much medical treatment, not because I couldn't, but because I didn't want it.
Yeah. Well, Doreen and everybody, thank you so much. I think, Doreen, a final word there, that the love conquering all is a point we can agree on, with a heart on the screen there. And I don't always remember that. And if it wasn't for the conversation we've had here tonight, I don't think I would have been moved to say that. And that is the best I can come up with. It really is, in this difficult time for so many people, in such a polar time, where the mind is divided, the emotions are high. When it comes down to it, in the worst of times, we do reach out to each other, don't we? We do, and that was a question I asked this morning. Why does it take a crisis for humans, for the best to come out in humans? Why don't we fast forward that a bit so it doesn't have to get to this crisis point for humans? But maybe that's just how we're built. That's how we're made. And Jacqueline, thank you for being here as well, and sort of stimulating the conversation and helping it be in that department, in that direction, and with all that you bring to the Portugal show and our community here. Thanks so much for being here tonight.
Thank you as ever for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. You are the community grandmother, our expat elder, and we'll see you again on Tuesday. And obviously, you are very welcome to join us tomorrow night with your views and thoughts, as everybody is. And Douglas says, "I wished I lived in a bubble in Portugal." I don't know if he's referring to you and me and our respective bubbles. I think we all live in bubbles, don't we? And maybe the point there is where you cite it. And Portugal is a good bet, I have to say. Jacqueline, boa noite, sleep well, and we'll see you soon.
And you, God bless you.
Okay, all right, and thank you, really, deeply. Thank you to everybody who stepped forward with their opinions. That's exactly what I wanted. I think this community is about people having their say, being able to speak out, being able to share, and being able to respond to each other. And I think we've kept a fairly level head whilst the emotions have been running fairly high. Sleep well, all of you, and Godspeed. I think that's a lovely phrase. Godspeed. God bless America. And our prayers, I'm sure I speak on your behalf, Jacqueline, you said before, our prayers for a peaceful resolution and a bright future in the United States.
Yeah. And God's grace to everybody.
God's grace. Thank you so much. Take care and bye for now.
Good night, everyone.